Hi guys, my name is Jasmine and welcome to my channel. This first video is going to be teaching you guys how to sculpt an eyeball in ZBrush. There will be two parts of the eye. There will be the outer lens and there will be the inner portion of the eye with the iris and the pupil. Over here on the right, you have your lightbox tools, and what you need to do is you can right click and then look for your sphere 3D, and that's what's on my screen right now. So I'm going to turn on the wireframe so I can see the polygons, and right now the center of the sphere is not facing me. So what I want to do is just rotate it so that the center where the pupil will be is facing me. Next, I am going to duplicate this. It's saving right now. Okay. So what I want to do is duplicate this so that we have the lens and the inner eyeball. So right now I will label this lens, and then I will rename this one the inner eye, and I will hide the lens for now. Okay, so first I'm going to zoom in and mask out the portion of the eye that's going to be the pupil. So I'm just going to take my mask pen. Oh, right. So first, you can't sculpt anything until you make it into a Polymesh 3D. So I'm going to press Enter, and then I'm going to go over to the side and press Make Polymesh 3D. And now you'll see that it's filled over here in the Polyframe menu. So now what I'm going to do is mask the inner portion. So I'm just going to go in a circular motion, and I'm going to press Control W. This makes it into its own poly group for easy selection. Now I'm going to press Control Shift on this poly group. It's going to isolate it, and then I'm going to click it again, Control Shift, and it hides it. Then you go into Geometry, Modify Topology, and Delete Hidden. Then I'm going to turn it to the side, and I'm going to select my Clip Curve brush. So I'm going to press C, Clip Curve. So Control Shift, and then I'm going to measure about how big I want the iris to be. Now, what I'm going to do is mask the iris out so that we can push it in and make it more concave. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit since it's a lot of geometry. I'm going to go to Z Modeler. You can press Z and go to Z Modeler. And then if you hover over the polygons, you can either hold the space bar or you can right click, and it'll give you this menu of a bunch of options. But first I'm going to go to Mask, and I'm going to go to Mask Polyloop. And I'm going to zoom in really close for y'all so you can see what this does. When I hover over a polygon, I don't know if you can see it, but where the cursor is, there is an orange line, and it's showing you the direction that it's going to mask. So right now, if I click on this, it's going to mask vertically. So you see how it did that? It's vertical. I'm going to press Control Z. So when you hover over it, make sure that the line is pointing in the direction that you want to mask. So right here, I'm going to click, and it's going to mask this area. Now for a quicker selection, I'm just going to use my mask pen tool. First, go to your transform and make sure your symmetry is on, and this will make the process a lot quicker. Okay. Now we are going to press Control W, and that makes it a new poly group. I think I want to get rid of this I think I want to get rid of this section in this poly group because it's not completely flat. So let's see. If I hover over it, press right click, I can mask it. I'm going to mask the selection, make it a new poly group. And then I'm going to get rid of this one by control shifting, control shift again, and now we're left with these two poly groups. And then I'm going to control W, and it's going to make it one poly group. So now if I control shift and select the outside of the model, it'll bring everything back and make everything visible. Now I'm going to make the iris concave by going to my move tool right here. This is the Gizmo 3D. I prefer using the transpose tool. So right here, I'm going to click off the gizmo and it'll give me this transpose line. So using the transpose tool, I'm going to control click on this poly group and it'll mask everything else. And if I press control on the masked portion, it will blur the mask. And to make it concave, we're going to go on the right side with all of our panels, and we're going to go to deformation, and we're going to go here to spherize, and just to show you what it does. First, let me line up I'm going to turn off symmetry. I'm going to drag the transpose tool out, and then I'm going to click the circle button, and what that is going to do, that's going to center the line in the middle of the object. So now with the spherize on, I'm going to drag it in, and you see how it creates a concavity. I'm going to turn off the wireframe, and that's how it should look. Now that I'm going to turn the wireframe on, but now that we have that, we are going to add some thickness to the inner eye. So we're in ZModeler. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hover over a polygon, and then I'm going to go to Q Mesh, and right now it's on a single polygon. We want it to be on all polygons. So all polygons, and then okay, I clicked and dragged it. So now you can see it's giving the iris some thickness. Now what I'm going to do is Control W to make it one poly group, and then I'm going to go to on the right side poly groups and group by normals. So that group the outside, the inside, and the edge that's connecting the inside and the outside. So now again we have to mask out the iris portion. So we have our ZModeler brush selected. So we are going to hold space down, mask. It's on mask poly loop like we wanted. And make sure it's on the flat side. So yeah, this one. I'm making sure that the orange line is facing the direction that I want it to be in. Okay. And actually what you can do is Control Shift on this so that none of the other poly groups are in your way. And I'm going to just use my mask pen by pressing Control and make sure you have your symmetry on and mask that remaining portion in. I'm going to press Control Shift on the outside of the model. It's going to bring everything back. And what I also want to do is mask this portion of the eye. So with mask loop, it's really tiny. So let's try to get it. If I zoom in a lot. Okay, great. Control W, and now we have the iris masked the way we want it to be. So now that the iris is done, now I want to add an outline on the iris. So what I like to do is add an extra edge loop. So the default for like when you hover over an edge is insert edge loop. So I'm going to insert one here. And I think I want to add additional edge loops around this loop so that when I subdivide it, that stays the same width that I want it to. So now with mask poly loop, I'm going to zoom in so we can see the orange line. Control W, and there we go. So now that that's done, I'm going to go into dynamic, apply, and I think I'm going to divide it to about 1 million polygons so that we have enough resolution to polypaint. So I'm going to get rid of the wireframe and the fill color. And that's how our eye is looking right now. I'm going to fill it with an off-white color because eyes aren't really white. They're a yellowish gray color. And that's how you make the highlights pop more too, because highlights are the brightest part. So I think this is a good color. So right now I'm going to click the mixed RGB channel. So you have RGB, which is your color, and then you have the material channel, and this one is both material and your color. So I'm just going to fill it with both the material skin shade 4 and this color. I'm going to go up here to color and fill object. And what you see is if I were to move in the color wheel, you won't see anything on your object because your object is filled. But if I were to go over in my list of subtools and click this paintbrush icon, then you can see the color over here. This comes in handy when you're trying to select colors that we're going to paint for the iris. So right now, I'm going to turn off the wireframe by clicking on line, and that gets rid of the lines, and now you can just see the fill. I'm going to select this poly group, and I deselected this poly frame, so now we can see the color. Now we can make it, let's make a blue eye. So I'm going to pick like a medium blue color, not too light, not too dark. I think I like this color. So here's a tip. Whenever you have whatever is visible on the screen will get filled with color. So if I were to have the whole, let's say I had the whole eye showing. If I were to click color and fill object, it's going to fill the whole object. But if I just have one portion selected and then I press color and fill object, it's only going to fill in that portion. So now when I press Control Shift on the outside, now it's different colors. So I'm going to click on this again, and now I need to select my standard brush and make sure that RGB is the only thing turned on. If I have the Z add-on, when I draw on it, it's going to build on top of my geometry. So Z add and Z sub are for sculpting, and this is for color information. So I'm going to deselect that and click RGB. RGB intensity is how intense the color is when you draw on. So for shading purposes, I'm going to turn it down so that we can gradually build up the color. So on the top of the iris, it's going to be darker because that's where the eyelid is casting a shadow. So to color pick, you press C just to make sure we're on that color. And then it's similar to Photoshop, how you press Alt and you can color pick, but for ZBrush, you press C. Now be careful when you're coloring, because if you press C out here, you see how in the color wheel, it changed to gray, and now if I color, it's gonna color gray. So just be mindful of that. But we're gonna press C to color pick, and we're going to shift the hue a little bit, and we're also going to saturate and darken the color. And then now I'm just coloring on top of the iris. I can color pick, and if you notice on the bottom left-hand side that the color wheel is moving as I'm moving. But I'm going to color pick to fade it out even more. Okay, now I'm going to color pick down here to get the original color. And now to make the highlight, I'm going to shift the hue over this way and then pick a lighter desaturated color. So like right here, I'm going to add a little highlight. And make sure you use C to color pick so that you can, make sure the colors are blending nicely. So now I'm going to press Control Shift on the outside to bring back the rest of it. And now just to see the poly groups, now all that we have left is the outline of the eye. So I'm going to zoom in so that I can click on it accurately. It's kind of small. Okay, great. So I'm going to turn the RGB intensity all the way up so that it fills completely black. Color, fill object. And this is how the eye looks. Okay, so the final thing for the inner eyeball is the redness and the veins and stuff that's going to be back here. So I'm going to click on a reddish color. I kind of tend to like a red pink color, but you want it to look like blood. I'm going to turn down the RGB intensity so that I can gradually build the colors. So it's going to be the darkest here, or in the most concentrated and saturated in the back, and then gradually make sure that my symmetry is on good. So now I'm going to gradually fade it to the front like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. Most likely this part of the eye isn't going to be seen very well anyway. It depends on what kind of character you have though. If you want them to have bloodshot eyes, or I don't know, you want them to look crazy. I missed this whole section. Okay. I'm going to try to look at it from the front. That is not the front. Remember the shadows on top? Okay. increasing my brush size a bit. Okay, I think that's good enough. So now I'm going to go to my alphas on the left, and there's actually a vein alpha right here. So I'm going to click on that, and these are different settings for when you want to paint. So like the freehand, color spray. What we want is to drag these on and put minimal effort in. So right now, so the veins, just like how the blood is concentrated here, they're going to be darker back here, and they're going to fade out and blend in more as they move towards the iris and the pupil. So what you're going to do is drag. I think I want it a little more saturated, so I'm going to increase the RGB intensity, and I'm just dragging out veins. Now I'm going to decrease it a little bit and just bring out some in the front. So I'm just dragging. And I think I'm going to add one more here. And that's it for the inner portion of the eye. Now what I have to do is, I had a duplicated eye over here, but I'm not seeing it, but that's not a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, go over to my lens. So what happened was I had my inner eye here. Do you remember when I tried to sculpt on it and it wouldn't let me because it wasn't a poly mesh yet? So when I was on this subtool, it created a separate poly mesh and it sent it over here. So it didn't bring my lens over though. So what I'm going to do is take my lens. I'm going to make that a poly mesh 3D. And then I'm going to go back to my inner eye, and I am going to append my lens. And now my lens is back. So I'm going to hide my inner eye for a bit to see my lens. Okay. So now I have to estimate the size of the iris. So I'm going to press transparent so I can see through the model. And I'm going to press Control, and I'm going to mask out the iris this way. So that's about the size of the iris. So I'm going to hide that. I'm going to press Control W, and now we're going to bring this out so that it looks like a bubble. So with the move selected, I'm going to press Control, and that's going to isolate this and mask everything else. If I press Control here, it's going to blur the mask. And then I'm going to, okay, symmetry is not on, so that's good. I'm going to drag my transpose tool out, click this white button so that it centers it. And then We're going to bring it out like that and form a little bubble. So now we have to scale it up to make it a little bit bigger than the inner eyeball. So I'm going to zoom out for you. I'm going to go to scale, press this white one, and you can move the line by dragging it up like that, by clicking the yellow circle, and then scale it like this. And now, let me turn off the poly frame, and now you can see the little bubble that the lens has created and the iris on the inside. Okay, so I think right now what I'm going to do is do a quick BPR render. First, I'm going to fill this with the white color just because that red wasn't looking that great. Okay, so now that's filled, I'm going to do a quick BPR render. The lens is usually, it's transparent, so first we're going to change the material of it. I'm going to turn off this poly paintbrush icon real quick so that we can actually see it. I'm going to choose reflected map here. I will actually increase the resolution, so dynamic, apply, divide it. I'll divide it one more time. And then I'm going to apply this material, so color, fill object. And then the final step is under display properties, there's BPR settings. And when you click on that, you need to enable BPR transparent shading. And it's going to ask you if you would like to turn it on. You'll say yes. And then if we go up, if we scroll up and press BPR, that's how it's going to look. And then you can change the visibility, and if we decrease it to about 50, it should be less. You should still see the reflections, but it should be more transparent. Yeah, like that. And then you can move your light source as well. I like it right there. And yeah, I think this is it for the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching. Bye.